Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast, the football podcast that we bring you each and every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube there, smash that subscribe and bell notification button to receive the latest content. As always, our episodes are sponsored by Hogan Elite Trophy Hire. Head over there on Facebook and Mark will hook you up with a discount if you need some silverware for that special occasion. And joining me today for a very special episode, Mr. Dean Fitz, regular on the show. How you doing, Dino?
What about you, lads? What about you?
Good. And making his return after a few weeks, Mr. Darren Cullen. Darren, how we doing, my man?
I'm good, Noel, yourself?
Good, not a bother at all, pal. So this is our match reaction to Wolves versus Liverpool. Hard to know where to begin with this one. We chalked up the win and we kept the clean sheet, but we still look as kind of a little bit flat-footed, really, don't we? We don't seem to be still hitting that kind of stride. And I suppose you have to take into account with Wolves as well. They're kind of the opposite of us. They've basically lost our front line in Raul Jimenez and Jota, and we lost our back line in Virgil and Joe Gomez. So it's always a struggle. They've struggled this year, although in recent times they've showed a little bit of form, but they have struggled this year with the lack of goals. And as we know as Liverpool fans, if you don't score goals or you don't keep clean sheets, you have a real problem on your hands, you know. Darren, what did you think of the match?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there in your opening line. We got the 3 points, kind of. It's the main thing. At the moment, we'll take them wherever we can get them, you know. But it wasn't a great spectacle. But the 3 points are most important. I thought Phillips and Kabak, again, they were fairly decent together. Mane, he was everywhere. When they scored in the goal that he probably should have scored, could have went down for the penalty as well. He just needs a goal or two, I think, and a little bit of a run to get his confidence back. But there's certainly signs of improvement there, you know, which is, Jesus, we'll take it at the moment, the way things have been the last couple of weeks, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see. I noticed last night watching it, Trent seems to be coming back to a bit of form again. You know? So I was happy to see that. And he was also like getting stuck in at the back as well as going forward, you know. So it's nice to see him back. Dean,
it hasn't been easy for him, Noel, either. He constantly has 2 different people beside him, so he can't get a bit of consistency either, you know. People say the centre-backs need consistencies, but the 2 full-backs also need the 2 centre-backs to be kind of regular as well, so they can afford them, can build up something, you know.
Yeah. Dean, what was your thinking on it last night? I mean, obviously, as Darren alluded to, at this stage in the season, the 3 points is the most important thing, and we're seeing that with a lot of teams at the top end of the table. How did you feel about last night?
Yeah, what Darren said wasn't a great spectacle. After we scored the goal, lucky enough we got the goal right on half time. It's kind of a killer blow, but it meant they had to come at us. So I was hoping that we'd kind of catch them on the break. Then we're trying to pass the ball into the net, like, you know what I mean. We're getting into the areas, and then instead of pulling the trigger, which we would have done last year or the year before, we're kind of waiting for other players to come into play to get the simple tap in or whatever. And I'm like, just put your fucking foot through it. What you were saying there about Jimenez being out, if those balls landed on the head of anybody else, we probably would have been beating 4 or 5-1, because your man Silva, whatever his name is, Jesus Christ, I've seen newborn babies head balls better than him.
It's like something out there, a 90s boy band, yes.
they plenty of opportunities. I think that the only good thing from now is two good wins on the bounce now. With 3-week break now to work, get
2 clean sheets as well.
Two clean sheets. First time we played the same 11 in 2 games on the bounce in. Jeez, I can't remember. Go into a nice break now. As much as I hate international football, the break cut there was great. Van Dijk will be close to return when that's all lifted. And I was listening to the Redmen TV. They're talking about our top 4 hopes. Me personally, I think that it's too far away. I know we're only 5 points off Chelsea, but we've got tough fixtures after the international break. We Villa, Arsenal, United, you know. Yeah, we've got some tough games coming up. Whereas if you look at the likes of Chelsea, they may slip up. They've got 6 or 7 games on the bounce that you'd think you'd expect them to win, but stranger things have happened. But yeah, it's happy to get the 3 points, and as frustration and on edge you are, it's just a relief when the whistle goes and you haven't fucking lost.
Yeah, I suppose, Darren, I've been very impressed with Nat Phillips. Even going back, myself and Dean were over at the Everton game that time when the youths played against Everton in the Cup. We were in Anfield that night and we turned around and we said he was absolutely outstanding that night as well.
He's an old school kind of defender. You know, there's too much made, I think, these days of you have to be a ball playing centre half. You have to be this, you have to be pacey. He just puts his head in where no one else kind of wants to put his head in, does the dirty work. Shorts, he's do be ripped, his socks still be ripped, his fucking head does be ripped. You know what I mean? He just gets his head in everywhere, and that's what we're missing at the moment. And I can't think of a game where he's made a mistake as such since he's come into the team, which for what? Someone who was being sent out on loan to the Championship only for the injury crisis. I mean, he's come in there and he's performed more than capably, you know what I mean? And I know those people kind of wary of back when he first came in, but the last 2 games you can't fault him either. He's not the quickest, but he seems to read the game quite well. So look, leave the 2 of them together. Fabinho, for me anyway, it's imperative he's left where he is in his number 6, his natural position. Like Dean alluded to there, top 4 we kind of need people to slip up. All focus should be on Europe. Use the league games with Fabinho in his natural position to build a bit of confidence, build a bit of consistency, and go for it in the Champions League. And if we get top 4 through the league, happy days, you know what I mean? But I think, yeah, it could be a little bit too far now. Certainly, if we hadn't won last night, it would have been finished. But it's very, I wouldn't say the fat lady is singing, but she's certainly clearing her throat for me anyway.
Yeah, it's like every game coming up now is nearly like a final, really, in the chase for the top 4. What you're making at the moment? I mean, for me, let's have a quick chat about Curtis Jones, who I think is an absolute fantastic prospect and a great baller. Dean, what you're thinking on him at the moment? He seems to be kind of taken out of games after about 60, 70 minutes. Didn't come in, didn't feature last night really, came on, you know what I mean? They're bringing on James Milner and Ox and stuff like that. What's your feeling on that?
I'd love him to be playing. When he is playing, he's playing well. Like I said there a couple of weeks on the Monday matchup, like he's still a lot of learning to do. This year has been like one of our worst seasons in recent memory for me. Players like Curtis Jones, it's all. I know Nat Phillips is only young as well, but Curtis Jones, I think, with Thiago coming in, right, first of all, with Fabinho going back into the middle, there's a lot of criticism going around for Thiago, and I think that as long as Thiago's fit, I think Jurgen is going to keep putting him in just so he can adapt to the Premier League. You know, I do love Curtis Jones when he's playing. You know, he does come up with that bit of magic and all, but I just think for the stability of the team as a whole, Fabinho at number 6 with Wijnaldum and Thiago, or probably Keita and Thiago, or or Milner coming in. A game like that last night wasn't looking for someone to come on to kill the game. They were putting so much pressure on us. I was shitting myself. I was sitting and I kept saying, every time we got into it, like a training position, you can see it in the lads. They're afraid to lose the game. There's a lot of pressure on them now. If we'd have lost or dropped points last night, you know what I mean? It's just more and more pressure being heaped onto them. So I understand why Curtis Jones, it wasn't brought in. A game like last night, Wolves are a very good team. I know they're not having a great season this year. Wolves are a very good team. They showed last night. They cut through us a few times last night. And I was saying to myself, where is the midfield, So we understand why he wasn't brought in last night. I think Milner was brought on and Keita was brought on just for a bit more stability. It was more to protect the 2 boys at the back. But just off the Curtis Jones thing, yeah, I criticised, well, not criticised, but I said about Quebec after his first 2 games, I said he's not tactically aware. He really stepped up now the last couple of games. I thought he was very good last night when it went past Phillips. I know Quebec isn't the quickest, but when it went past Phillips, he was there to stick the fucking leg in at, like,
there was one there, boy. I think we were lucky it fell to him and good boy, but he got back at him nicely. He was 1-on-1 and Quebec got back across and he got the foot in and put him off. But if it had been Traore maybe, or Neto, maybe we might have been a bit nuclear, but he done what he had to do, you know what I mean?
Just on Neto, Trent Alexander-Arnold kept him in his pocket last night. Neto's a very, very good player, and I thought Trent was exceptional last night. I thought the back fives were brilliant last night, Alisson
barely wobble.
Yeah, for Alisson's recent criticism, a few of those headers were on target, and he was in the right place to just catch them and calm the play down. Whereas probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. If one of them headers had came at me, you probably thought he would have headed in himself or something.
Just couldn't catch a break, could he, the last couple of weeks?
Yeah.
No, you know, this is...
Obviously with his father doing, didn't... Jesus, that didn't help him either, but he seemed to be a bit more at the races. I agree, last night he was where he had to be, done the simple things right.
Yeah,
good game overall, you know.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to be overcritical, there's probably a couple of balls came in that he could have came out and claimed. I mean, that's just being overcritical, really. You know?
That's just confidence, Niall, as well. He probably didn't want to come out and miss it, you know.
Yeah. Because I noticed even with the one that he cleared with the punch, even normally he come out and he just catch that. You know what I mean? So, but
I mean, let's face it, he's still one of the best keepers in the world. He's allowed a little blip, I think.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Sure, he hasn't put a foot wrong in 2 years or whatever. 2.5 years. So. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but just back on Curtis Jones, I completely got sidetracked there. But I do agree what you're saying. Like he is being one of our better players this year. He's really stepped up this year. But games like last night, with confidence it's building like so slowly. A game like last night was looking for a bit more of a calmer head. You know what I mean? So
I think if we were 2-0 up or 3-0 up, he'd have brought Jones on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I suppose my biggest concern really, and you guys know as fantasy football heads as well, when he brought then Donker on, I mean, then Donker's always one of those lads in a fantasy team that always crops up and gets a header or something, you know. So when he brought him on, I was kind of a little bit concerned, you know. But I think he only had I think one ball came into the box and he was close. He just missed it, and someone else had it, and Allison saved it. But he normally, strangely enough, crops up and gets his fair share. But yeah, I suppose it was nice to get the win, and you know, again, another clean sheet, and you know, if we can string, like in terms of the top four, I think if we could put 2 or 3 wins together, I think we'll be there or thereabouts, because I don't think the run is going to be
look, Noel, like I say to a lot of people, we're having the worst season arguably in 10 years from what we've become kind of used to. And we're 5 points off the top 4. We've lost 6 home games on the bounce, and we're 5 points off the top 4. Yeah. So it's not like with an injury crisis and everything that goes with it. It's not an insurmountable task by any way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? If they click again, there's no reason we couldn't win 9 games on the bounce. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of getting the little bit of confidence back between the whole lot of them, and hope just 1 or 2 wins, shite wins, scrappy ones, and then. Hopefully the rest will come, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just it'd be encouraging as well, because I was talking after the game last night with a couple of lads, and I was saying, you know something, if we were to get top 4 this season, with everything that we faced this year between fans, bar, injuries, you know, Klopp's mother passing away, Alisson's dad tragically passing away, you know what I mean? It'd nearly be like winning. It'd be the equivalent of nearly winning the league. You know what I mean?
Don't forget, next year we're going to have, please God, a full squad back, and I still think, no matter what people say, we're the only team that will be near City next year if both teams are at full strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I suppose it depends on the purchasing plans of the other clubs out there. You know what I mean? Like if a Chelsea or a United were to land a Haaland or something like that, certainly you would think they would be closing the gap then, you know.
I think you can nearly sign him off for City. They'd be the only ones that'll afford him, I'd say.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens anyway. But yeah, I mean, all we could say is, you know, we move on, we go again. It's another game. You know, we won. We got a clean sheet, as Dean said. That's 2 now. We seem to have the measure in Europe. I mean, the 2 games against Leipzig, I thought were 2 very impressive games, considering.
Well, you wouldn't rule us out, would you?
No.
For winning the Champions League, and I think you'd be silly to. Not to now, if we drew PSG or something, it could go really, really bad, really, really quickly. But at the same time, we could make a win. You just don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, a coin draw on Friday, you know, would go a long way.
If we could draw Porto or something. No disrespect to Porto, and I don't want to set myself up for a fault.
Porto again is great, yeah. Porto. That's the name that comes out of the hat all the time, isn't it? Porto.
You know what I mean? You'd fancy us over 2 legs there, wouldn't you?
Well, we were saying last night on the Monday mashup. I'll tell you one thing, lads. I wouldn't mind drawing Real Madrid at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's if they go through tonight. They weren't great last week, 2 weeks ago.
But assuming they went through, you know. I mean, we could be staring down the barrel tomorrow night, you know, probably not with City and stuff like that, but we could be the only English club left in the Champions League after tomorrow.
City will go mad tonight. I can see that being 3-4. And Chelsea, well, let it go Madrid. If they get an away goal early, it'll make it interesting, you know.
Yeah, I was saying to the lads last night on the Monday mashup, if Suarez was to show up, I mean, he didn't show up last week. You know what I mean? If he was to show up, he's more than capable of putting
Well,
goals.
any game that and I haven't watched many Atletico Madrid now, granted this year, but any game that I have seen them, if he's not firing, they're not firing as such, you know what I mean? He's their outlet. He's their goal threat, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, he's been firing a lot more than he hasn't, but I've watched one or two other games this year where he hasn't quite been at it, and they're kind of average, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not the team, I don't think that, they're not as good as they were that beat was last year, you know? You wouldn't be looking at them going, really fearing them with a full strength team. Obviously, you'd be afraid of them now the way things are at the moment, but I think if we drew them again full strength, we'd beat them, you know? Last year was just a bit of a freak.
Well, I'd rather draw them at the moment than to draw Chelsea or Man City.
Yeah, you'd have to give crucial credit for what he's done. He's come in there and he's steadied the ship, you know, and he's getting a tune out of the Chelsea lads. So he's a good manager, him, you know. I think he was just hung out a bit at PSG because they kind of expect everything, you know.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we'll leave it with this. I mean, we're quietly, you know, confident and happier than we were. I mean, it was a lot of doom and gloom over the last 3 months, a lot of poor results, but we seem to be gradually getting back there. Jota seems to be getting back to form.
As Dean touched on earlier, this 3-week break, providing whoever goes away comes back okay, could be the making of us, you know. I know you hate international football, but boy, Jesus, we could do it this time, you know, this time of the season.
Brilliant. Well, as always, lads, thanks a million for coming on. And,
more than welcome, Will.
As I said earlier, head over to the Dynamo Podcast Network, smash that subscribe and bell notification button, and we will touch base with you again soon. Thanks a lot, lads.
Absolutely. No bother, Will. Talk to you soon.